All right, good evening, everyone. It being 6:05 on Monday, December 6th, 2021, we will begin the meeting for the Committee of Ways and Means. All votes will be by roll call this evening. If you would like to speak and you're on the panel, please use the raise hand function. For anyone who is in the audience this evening, please email any questions to towncouncil@braintreema.gov. So with that, Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Barrica?
Here.
Councilor Ryan?
Here.
Councilor Connors?
Here.
Councilor Flaherty?
Here.
Councilor Sasha?
Here.
All present.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. We have no approval of minutes this evening, but we will move on to our old business, which is 21027, Mayor Ordinance to establish a centralized maintenance department or take up any action relative thereto. There will be a public hearing at tomorrow's full council meeting on December 7th. So is there a motion to take off the table order 21027?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Connors. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Barrica?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Aye.
Councilor Connors?
Aye.
Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Sasha?
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, I would like to ask if there's anyone from the mayor's office who would like to speak on this matter.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Before I get into the substance of the motion before the committee this evening, I want to recognize a couple of folks who are with us and apologize for my still somewhat scratchy voice. I'm suffering from a good old-fashioned cold these days. So we have Ed Spellman, Director of Municipal Finance, Jim Arsenault, the Director of the Department of Public Works, and Mike McGurty with us this evening, the Director of the Town's Facilities Department. Just by way of background and a little bit of a refresher, this was an item that was first formally raised by Councillor O'Brien back, I think, in 2020, raising some very insightful suggestions and values associated with consolidating the town maintenance program with the school maintenance program. After some of those discussions and continuing some of the discussions we had been having internally, we provided the council with kind of an overview of what the process would look like in order for us to undertake this endeavor, understanding that it has multiple steps, multiple variables, and is something that is going to kind of continue to change and evolve as we move forward with the process. As you probably remember, earlier this year, we adopted Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 37M, which was the first procedural step allowing us to even consider consolidation of the two departments. With that under our belt, the next step is to gain a majority vote of both the town council and the school committee authorizing us to move forward. And that's an important note I just want to draw. That the vote that we're asking this committee and the full council to take is not a vote for any particular organizational structure. It is not a vote for any particular funding or dollar values. It is simply the vote that we need in order to continue the conversation and move forward in substance with the consolidation of the two departments. And so once the school committee has an opportunity to take up the same question, hopefully we receive majority votes from both bodies, and then we move into some of those next steps that we've kind of spoken generally about, including most notably any potential bargaining obligation that exists with our staff and their union representatives. So this is step 2 of a multi-step and evolving process. And so I'm going to apologize in advance if my answers to any questions or the representative's answers appear cagey. They are not. It is simply because what we're asking for this evening and tomorrow evening is effectively for the authority to initiate a formal consolidation and not with regards to any of the underlying details that would encompass what that's going to look like. So I think everybody received on Friday or via email on Friday a presentation. And Madam Chair, with your permission, I think it probably makes sense for us to go through that, and then we can certainly take questions as we're going or at the end, whatever is your preference, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief of Staff Taub. Why don't you go through the presentation in its entirety, and then we can field questions. I think that just might lend a little bit more coherency to the procedures, especially over Zoom.
Sure. And so as I pull up the presentation, just a couple of notes I think that are worthy of sharing. We have provided the presentation to representatives from the school department and the school committee, and are continuing our dialogue with them to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to provide input as we move forward in this process. The schools and the school buildings in particular have been a priority for the mayor, as I'm sure everybody remembers. He toured everyone from boiler to roof, and it's not lost on anybody here or on the school side that our schools are in much need. They are in great need of some love from the maintenance department, and that we're hopeful that by building an infrastructure, we're able to prioritize those properties accordingly, and hopefully transition to a more proactive rather than reactive system to ensure that our buildings are being maintained and cared for in the most effective and efficient manner. And we believe that by building an infrastructure such as the one that we're going to talk about as simply an example, we will be able to do that in the years to come. So every time I do this, I forget how. So here we go. PowerPoint. Okay, can everybody see the presentation? Okay, so I can't see everybody. So if there's a question while we're going through it, please, maybe Chairwoman Baraka, let me know, and I'll stop and address it. So as I think everybody knows, currently the facilities department on the town side falls within the Department of Public Works, and the proposal that we have considered maintains that same oversight. The facilities department would remain within the DPW, but it would be expanded both in staff and in responsibility to include all of our school buildings and properties. So I think, as everybody here knows, that currently the town and school departments run wholly independent of each other, and that includes separate custodial staff, separate trade staff, and by trade I mean electricians, plumbers, HVACs, painters, carpenters, and also wholly separate mechanic staff, one for the school fleet and one for the town fleet. What some folks may not have realized is there was an agreement executed, I kid you not, in December of 1996 that designates certain properties as being jointly maintained by the school department and the town. And it's done in what is, in my humble opinion, a fairly inefficient way, and it's by basically distance to the building. And that agreement has not been revised since 1996, and we often find ourselves in a situation wondering, who mows this lawn, or who's responsible for this tree, or, how far are we from the school in order to decide who's responsible for it. And what we're hoping is that consolidation of the departments would eliminate the need for that, because the town would take over the responsibility for those buildings and those properties, regardless of their proximity to the school itself. So, this committee has spent a great deal of time with budgets, but since it's been a while, as I mentioned, the town facilities department falls within DPW. It handles all of our properties, our buildings, and the vehicle fleet, and has a budget of $1,658,614 spread over a couple of different programs, and employs 17 full-time staff members as well as one casual employee. And if there are questions, I think, Mike McGurty is best suited, but we do employ some folks in the trades so that we're able to keep a lot of our facilities work in-house, which results in a significant financial savings over having to outsource it. So we have a director and an assistant director, and then we currently have an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a painter, several mechanics, and several general laborers. As you may recall, I think it was 3 years ago, we converted all of our custodial staff into laborers, which allows them to utilize a broader skill set and take on a broader variety of work throughout the buildings as needed. And Jim and Mike can certainly talk more about what an incredible value that has provided to the town in the services that we receive from that team of laborers. The school department facilities team currently operates under the direction of the Director of Finance and Operations, and that is Ed Cronin, for those of you who don't know, and he has a facilities manager, that is Chris McNamara. Ed and Chris oversee a budget of $2,680,406 on the custodial side and $913,486 on the maintenance side, for almost $3.6 million in total. They currently have, I think it's 40 custodians. They have 3 craftsmen, 1 electrician, 1 general maintenance staff, and 1 laborer. Everything else, including most notably, as we've seen in the recent months, plumbing and HVAC is performed by a third-party contractor as needed, which certainly has a financial consequence, but also some non-financial consequences that come along with that as well. We thought it might be helpful for folks to see in organizational chart form what the departments currently look like and how they compare to one another. So this slide just describes in more detail and on the school side broken down by school where the staffing currently exists. And one note I'll make is, as we move into what a proposed consolidated department might look like, it does not include any reduction in numbers, and instead, in some cases, as you'll see, actually reflects an increase based on what we anticipate the need might be, and also how we could realize some of those in-house versus outsourcing savings. So, I know, myself included, we want to know where we're going to save the most money and how can we do that. And there's certainly, I would anticipate in the long term, there is going to be significant financial savings, but there's also some significant non-monetary benefits that we believe we would realize if we were able to consolidate both departments and manage all of our properties under one department with the appropriate infrastructure for doing that. So we believe that what we're going to see is greater efficiency along with more cost-effective service. Our folks are more familiar with the property. And when I say our folks, I mean town employees generally versus third-party contractors. But we would be able to utilize our resources to conduct a global assessment of all of the buildings, school and town, and determine the maintenance needs of all of those properties, and then prioritize those in what could potentially be a multi-year plan, understanding that certain emergency situations might come up, but by having one department able to do a true global assessment, we would be able to move towards working in a more proactive rather than reactive manner. There's also what's called facilities dude software that we would be able to consolidate for both the school and town side to also help oversee and manage the needs of our buildings and make sure that we're taking care of our properties so that they last longer and serve our community longer. So what it would do is it would create a pool of staff. And I say that, and I note with the exception of the custodians at the schools for the time being. The custodians at the schools would remain assigned to their schools as part of the consolidation to make sure there's no loss of service there. But everybody else, our plumbers, our HVAC specialists, our electricians, our mechanics, would be able to be dispatched to any location depending on need, while others are performing the preventative maintenance that we would have identified to make sure that all needs are being met. And again, we all understand the maintenance needs of our schools have to be a top priority, and they will continue to be a top priority with the consolidation of both departments. What we have now is if there's a plumbing issue, for example, in a school, the school department has to contact a third party to come in and perform the necessary work, because the plumber that we have on the town side is technically not eligible to do that because of the divide in the departments. And so when this centralized department would be fully staffed, we would have various people in multiple trades, therefore reducing the number of work required from third-party vendors who, as we all know, charge a higher hourly rate. There's an increased rate for off hours. There are other administrative costs, which we'll talk about, which results in an increased cost for services overall. And so what we could ultimately work towards doing is also thinking about converting a portion of the custodial staff at the school department into these general laborers, which would enhance the services being provided by expanding the type of work that they're capable of performing in the schools. You know, one example I can give you, we have a beautiful new East Middle School, and we had to change HVAC filters. So custodians, under their current job responsibilities, don't change HVAC filters. And we had to bring in a third-party contractor in order to do that. You know, we're getting ready to start construction on a second new middle school. And I think it's really important that we recognize the need to prioritize these locations so that we can continue to have nice things and offer these great benefits and resources for our young people. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Maintenance of School Grounds 1996 agreement. This would eliminate the need for that, and it would give us greater clarity on who's responsible for the lawns, trees, and fields at the school locations. And then one that for me is incredibly significant and not financially related at all is utilizing our in-house staff results in a significantly greater pride and ownership. A lot of our staff have been longtime Braintree residents. A lot of them went to the schools. They have kids who are in the schools, and there's a certain pride that comes with enhancing our buildings for our staff. And some of that can be seen here at Town Hall. I mean, everybody has seen Cahill Auditorium and how beautiful that looks, and really taking pride in the work that we've done, not just at Town Hall, but at some of our other buildings, which we'll talk about. It also allows for increased availability of staff, utilizing, for example, the summer months when the schools are empty and deploying additional resources to those locations so that we can get more work done when the students are not in class. And also will allow for a more efficient oversight by management. We would build in a strong leadership structure within the organization to make sure that on the school side and the town side, there are direct points of contact so that it's clear when there's an issue, who to call to get somebody over to the property as soon as possible in order to remedy the situation. And so that infrastructure, I think, will be a dramatic change in what currently exists. And I don't say that as a negative for the school. They simply don't have that staffing in place. And by consolidating the two, we'll be able to enhance what I believe is a successful model being used on the town side to cover all of the buildings, including the schools. So now let's get to the money, right? So I want to say for the next several slides, these are real numbers. I went through invoices that the school department has paid over the last several months, and working with Mike McGurty, did an analysis of what it would cost if we were able to do it in-house, which is ultimately the goal, right? It's to limit the amount of third-party work that we need and bring the work in-house. So we had to repair 4 lavatory sinks, and that work was done by a third-party vendor. It took that vendor 32 hours for a total of $123.04 an hour. So almost $4,000 just for the labor, and $1,845 for the materials. So for a total of $5,782.49. Doing an analysis of the work that was done and what our staff would be able to do if we kept the work in-house, it cut the amount of time by more than half, down to 12 hours at $32 an hour, for a total of $384 to do the labor at the current in-house hourly rate. Also seeing a savings in materials, that would be $1,350. So in comparison to the almost $6,000 we paid a contractor, doing that work in-house would be $1,734, resulting in a savings of over $4,000 just for that one job that was done. So fairly significant savings when we're talking about the dollars and cents. Similarly, We did some work where we had to shut down the water system and replace a section of the main feed line. In total, a third-party vendor billed us for 24 hours of work at $80 an hour, so over $1,900 to perform the work. Being able to do that in-house, we estimated it would be 16 hours, again at that $32 an hour, for $512 in total. So a saving, I mean, that's a third almost of the cost, more than a third. So just over $1,400 to be able to do the work in-house. And then the last example are specifically about the staff in the trades. So we pay an electrical contractor an hourly rate of $103. And every time they come to a building, we pay a $25 truck charge. Now, $25 on its own may not seem significant, but every time the contractor comes to a building, we pay $25. We obviously don't pay a truck charge when we're doing the electrical work in-house, and we pay an hourly rate of $32 an hour. So the hourly savings is $71 plus that $25 truck charge every time we call somebody to a building. For mechanical services, the overtime rate is $184.56, whereas the in-house hourly rate is $48 an hour. So total savings every time we have to call a mechanical contractor is $136.56 an hour. So again, I can't tell you, I wish I could, how much we will save going forward, but if the historical data and these real numbers are any indication, we're going to realize financial as well as non-monetary savings through a consolidation of the departments. So the next slide I'm going to put up with the caveat that this is absolutely subject to change, okay? This is in a perfect world, if we could design our department, what do we think we would need based on what we know now? And so that's what this chart looks like. Again, staying within the Department of Public Works, the division would run under the direction of a director. That director would have administrative support through an office clerk and a finance assistant who would be responsible for things like paying bills, doing payroll, entering things into Munis, utilizing the school and facilities dude software, and providing that level of administrative support to the director and to the department as a whole. You then would have two assistant directors. As I mentioned earlier, on the town side, we currently have one. These two assistant directors would be interchangeable so that if one is out, the other could step in and cover for him or her during that time period, but also understanding that one of these two positions is going to be our school main point of contact, and one is going to be the town side main point of contact. Within those two positions, we've built in an additional layer of supervision because that oversight is going to be key as we're balancing resources and need and priorities. So on the school custodian side, again, this is the same number of custodial staff that we currently fund at the schools. And we've added a custodial manager who will be responsible for the oversight of the custodial staff at the various school buildings. We then have on the right-hand side, or at least my right-hand side, the mechanics. And so we would have a working mechanic manager who again provides that managerial oversight to two master mechanics and a mechanic welder. All of these positions would also be equipment operators, so we could utilize them a little more broadly as needed. They would cover the school and the town vehicle fleets. We then would have a facilities manager who would be responsible for the pool of laborers and also for those specialty trades. And this is where I think we're going to realize the most value by staffing plumbers, electricians, HVAC specialists, a painter, a carpenter, some craftsmen, and then again, that pool of laborers that can be deployed for an incredible variety of responsibility and tasks, which is something that we've seen be incredibly successful on the town side. So I wanted to take a minute just to highlight, and with Mike here and with Jim here, I have had the opportunity to really get to know what the facilities department does every day. And I got to tell you, it is absolutely incredible. we see they make things beautiful. We can talk about some of the buildings that are so enhanced both on the inside and the outside, but they also keep us running at our core. And so I do want to take an opportunity to thank Mike and his team. I hope he will pass that along, for how much we appreciate all of the work that they do every day for the town and for our buildings. So the first one, and we had opening day for basketball this past weekend, is the Dhardi Gym. And this is something that continues as we sit here to complete the renovations, but it's really stunning. And we've redone bathrooms, we've added LED lighting, we've enhanced the drainage, we've replaced windows. So if you haven't been there, I highly, highly encourage you to go there, because it's a showpiece, honestly. I mean, you can see it from the picture with the blue lighting. I think it's really spectacular. And that's work that was done by our team in-house. We have the American Legion renovation. I mean, these before and afters kind of speak for themselves, how beautiful the building looks now. And we continue to work with our partners at the Legion to make sure that their building is functioning in an efficient manner, but it also looks incredible from the outside. We did some ADA work at the Dhardi Gym, enhancing the ramp for folks to be able to have access to the property. This is one that I didn't know about. We share an animal control facility with Weymouth. This is the before and after for what that property looks like. We did some work over at the Marge Crispin Center. So it's amazing what even just a touch up to the outside of a building does to enhance the aesthetic of the property. If you've been to Town Hall, you've seen that we are moving away from individual water bubblers to updated water dispensers. We have one at Dhardi Gym, the police station has one, we have one here at Town Hall. Not only are these more efficient for the environment, but it's something that was installed completely, takes up less space. We don't have somebody coming in every month or so with a new bucket of water, and hopefully being able to move town-wide with these. And I believe that the school department already has these in some of their buildings. One of my personal favorites, Cahill Auditorium. We did Cahill Auditorium over using our in-house crew, led by Matt McSweeney on the painting side, from the bottom to the top, including the ceiling. I don't know when the last time the ceiling got a fresh coat of paint, but it was much needed. And it was something that we were able to do in relatively short time, all things considered. And I think it looks beautiful. I hope that most of you, all of you, would agree with me on that. And then this I didn't know, the Art Center building renovations. So as I understand it, and someone correct me if I'm remembering incorrectly, I think Blue Hills started this project and then we finished it. So this was built by the facilities department when Blue Hills was done with the work that they were doing. And so I think that's just another great example of the skills that we have here and the system we have in place that we can expand to really just increase its success and efficiency across the town. So as I mentioned, multi-step process, still a lot for us to do. The next step would be for the school committee and the council to vote to allow us to establish the centralized department. With the note, and I don't understand it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. We need a majority vote of both bodies to consolidate, but it only takes a majority vote of one to disband. Not sure why. I'm hoping we never find ourselves in that situation. But right now the focus is really on, can we move forward with establishing a centralized department? So once we get the approval from both bodies, we will proceed with all of the unions, and if appropriate, negotiate any changes that may or may not impact their membership. If needed, we'll proceed with transferring the ownership of any equipment that we have, and we'll adjust the future budgets in order to make sure that we're funding this appropriately and that the money is in the right place. And then we have talked, and I believe the mayor has committed to conducting a complete inventory of all of our buildings and establishing priorities for the years to come, so that we're able to address and remedy our most emergent issues rather than having to react to them in the event of an emergency or a crisis. So I hope that answers a lot of your questions. I see Councillor Ryan's hand is already up. So I will stop talking and I will, Madam Chair, turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief of Staff Taub. I might suggest, if you don't mind, stop sharing, and then if we need to come back, that way we can see everyone. Thank you. All right, Councillor Ryan, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My question is, well, first of all, I think this is a good idea. I've seen and heard of a lot of the good things that have happened, especially I think when Mike McGurty gets involved and starts running some projects. I've seen some really good things, and I've had a few conversations with Mayor Chuck DeCouris. So my question is, you showed an org chart. How many new positions are there? And like, what grades are some of these positions going to be? Because I just want to make sure that before I vote on something, I understand that aspect of it as well.
Certainly. So I'll say this with the note. The org chart is really just an example. We're not committing to what the organizational structure is going to look like this evening, because I think that would be premature. And we do still have to negotiate with the unions. So as we move this forward is when we'll get into the specifics of what the grades are going to be, what the union membership is supposed to be. But there are some new positions, notably the clerical positions. I think on the school side, the facilities department has a clerical person. On the town side, we do not. We share one with the DPW. So that would be an addition there. The added assistant director, the school department has one. So that's not an add there because we have one and they have one. We adjusted the mechanic numbers. So I believe in total, the numbers are the same, but there is a manager added to the chart for oversight purposes. And on the custodial side, we pulled a custodian out of one of the schools to create the manager position to allow for oversight without an increase in staffing. So there may be an increase in positions, but I think that that's going to net out with the savings from having to utilize third-party vendors. Same is true on the trade side of things. The town has a plumber. I believe the schools has a plumber. But we would look to add a third because that need is significant and also costly when we utilize a third party. We have an electrician, and I can't recall if I mentioned if the school also has an electrician. So keeping two, there's no change there. The school department at some point in time had a plumber HVAC. They do not currently. So the HVAC would be a new addition. The town has one painter. So there's no addition there. The town has 8 laborers, so no addition there. The craftsman, I think, Mike, do we have one craftsman now?
Yes, we do.
And the
We do.
schools has also, the schools has 3 craftsmen, so that's
Yes.
gonna net out as well. So there is addition, Councilor Ryan, but it's addition to avoid the need for third-party contractor use. And as we've seen just in the distinction in the hourly rates there, even if we're paying somebody a new salary, it's going to be less than what we're paying a third party now.
Councilor Ryan, did you have anything to add or follow up?
Yeah, I do. I support this idea. I just think we're adding a lot of positions. And I think that you can talk about saving money from going to contractors. I'd like to see maybe some of the historic money that's been spent on contractors over the years. I know you came up with an hourly rate, but that doesn't, in a job specific cost, but that doesn't tell the whole story. So I just want to do my due diligence here and see what the costs are. And, you know, we couldn't fund all the positions in the school department last year, and we're adding a lot of positions under this proposed organization. So I'm a little concerned with that. And specifically, you know, with the clerk, you know, I think if you look at maybe trying to get some people that do the work now to do the work and maybe bump them up a grade or something would be a cost savings. And I just want to, so I don't know how much authority the council has for me to be like talking about this and asking these questions, or we really just voting on the concept of, a consolidated maintenance department, because I really like the idea. I think when you have a good person in charge, as I mentioned, running the show, you get good work out of everybody, you hold people accountable, and you get people doing things the right way. And I agree with that. But I just want to make sure that we're not looking at just adding every job we want. I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm trying to, I just want to take a hard look at how many jobs you add. And so is that under our purview here to talk about that?
So we're not approving an organizational structure at this point. And, this is an example of what it could look like with the asterisk subject to change. And I'm not saying we're going to fill every position right out of the gate. This is an idea of if we were to consolidate, what it could look like. All that we're approving this evening and tomorrow evening is the concept of the consolidation. We can't move forward in formally organizing a department and negotiating as we may be required to without the permission of the council and the school committee to create a centralized department. So we're not talking about the details of what that's going to look like, but we wanted to offer an example of what they look like now and what they could look like if they were consolidated, so that we're not talking about this in a overly theoretical manner without seeing something on paper.
So through the chair, that's my concern, is looking at that org chart that you've given as a possible type of organizational chart that this department could be. That's my concern, that I'd like to take a hard look, and adding this number of positions, these new positions, is a concern to me, given the current fiscal budget we had last year when we didn't have some teachers. And I think we need to take a hard look at that. So I would approve this tonight based on everybody hearing that feedback and everybody taking that seriously, because I think, it's just the right thing to do. And I understand what people might think they need to have, the right department, but we need to look at it through the lens of, it's tough times, and let's try to, do the reorganization and not, with a tight checkbook, so to speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan and Chief of Staff Taub. I'm just going to pause for 1 second because I think we have lost Councilor Shasha from our panel.
I'm taking care of that. I'm pulling them over from the attendees.
Thank you, Clerk Semino. So we'll just pause.
It's
Councilor Shasha, are you on the phone?
Hi, it's Steve. Sorry about that. Had to
No
switch to my
problem.
phone.
I just wanted to make sure we got you. So thank you for dialing back
Thank you.
in. Thank you, Clerk Semino. All right, we will carry on. Councilor Flaherty, go right ahead.
Thank you. My concerns are quite related to what the concerns Councilor Ryan has raised, but I'm going to pursue it a little further. Obviously avoiding the need to hire all kinds of third-party tradesmen is very appealing, because I think you've done a very convincing job of demonstrating that the cost savings are there. And that's, obviously necessary for this town and any town really. And also they're very skilled in their own right in every capacity that they fill. But, in your example where you were talking about how the schools have to hire a third party plumber, for example, because they can't access the town plumbers, and that the third party plumber is so much more expensive than it would be if we were doing it in-house. But I have to think that the town plumbers are not just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They're also busy. So I guess what I'm asking is, how can we be sure in the process of making this change, that we don't just introduce staffing shortages to the whole town. Because it sounds like you have some notion that we're going to have to hire some people, and it's not clear because you're not committed to an organizational chart, so we don't really know precisely how many would be necessary. But if we're hiring more people, I mean, it seems to me like the reason why the schools are in the condition they're in is, well, there's more than one reason, but a big factor is that their maintenance budget has been cut and they don't have the staffing. So if we're going to hire the people anyway, why are we doing the consolidation?
So I think what's important is the infrastructure. And on the town side, we have had and continue to have a strong infrastructure for maintenance because we have an entire department that's dedicated to that. And frankly, the school department, they don't. And I don't say that in a negative way. You have, Ed Cronin and Chris McNamara who share the weight across the school properties. And you're right, they have cut their maintenance budget year after year, which has resulted in the lack of ability to staff. That's not the same on the town side. The town has an existing management infrastructure in place and has the experience to expand that and the knowledge base to expand it and the ability to focus on that as its sole priority. And so you'll see it's 3 plumbers because we know plumbing is where we're likely to have the greatest number of issues, emergency and non-emergency. Our folks are still working at the high school doing valve replacements because they are so, what's the word? I'm told that if you touch a valve the wrong way, it could break. And that's because we're working in a reactive way, and we're doing all of these replacements to try to be proactive and to try to get ahead of those issues. And so by having a division in and of itself whose sole focus is maintaining the properties with the right staffing, it's going to be more efficient and it's going to be more effective. And we're going to be able to take these hundreds of dollars an hour that we're farming out to people where we're working on somebody else's schedule and keep it in-house and pay less and work on our schedule under our oversight and being able to identify the priorities as we see them. And that's working with the superintendent, and that's working with the mayor, and that's working with the DPW and facilities team so that we're making sure that these issues are being addressed. And the schools, their staffing their numbers have been cut, but they also have consistently received a significant amount of capital funding for these types of projects. And so that's an additional available pool that would support in what I think is in a more efficient way, maintaining the buildings. And so some of the things that we've talked about is if you have 3 plumbers, and Mike, please jump in, or Jim, please jump in. You have 3 plumbers who have their preventative maintenance tasks. And if there's an issue at one of the schools, for example, the assistant director can take that plumber off of the task that he's on and relocate him to address the school issue immediately as it's occurring. And that's an option that we don't currently have on the school side now because we don't have those specialties in-house. And so it's with the infrastructure in place and with the oversight in place, it is going to run more effectively and it's going to better suit everybody's needs, both on the school side and on the town side. I don't know, Mike or Jim, if you wanted to add
Go ahead,
anything.
Director Arsenal.
Yeah, because so I just wanted to say that there are a lot of efficiencies beyond what you saw in the reports, because there's a lot of procurement law requirements and stuff like that of municipalities, but if it's done internally, the work can be done. So we can expedite the work. We don't have to go through an advertising bidding process and all of that stuff, which would save tremendous amounts of money. Literally would have cost more than $2 million to do the American Legion building. But because we're able to do it in-house with our own sources, it only costs around $60,000. It's just a phenomenal amount of savings. It's hard to describe to you, But being in-house and doing the work on our own has saved tremendous amounts of money. And I don't know how else to relay it to, but it's just, it really is an effective way of doing it. And also, as Nicole has said, that doing it internally, people really care. I hate to say it, but if you're a private business, you want to do good, but it's not, your own home, so, but with these guys, they really have a lot of care and a lot of really are dedicated to getting it done and getting it done right. And I think it's a huge part of this too, the tremendous amount of savings by doing internally, and also the dedication of the staff that they want to get it done. And as Nicole said, I mean, we'll work out whatever the arrangement is for the funding through the process. It's not like we just put this out as kind of just to say this is what we envision, but we'll obviously have to go through the process and get it approved and all that. So I don't see, myself, Mike, you can say if you feel differently, but I think we can work with whatever constraints we have and we'll make it work. So.
We have, Madam Chair, if I may.
Right ahead.
Councilor Ryan, thank you for your kind words. I will pass that on to the staff. They're phenomenal. And thank you again, all councilors, for all the nice things that you've said about them. They're a great group. We have been up at the Braintree High School since late August. We're getting close to our 500th valve that we've replaced in the building. And in some cases, some of these valves take 2 or 3 people to get in place. Some of these valves are big, and we're doing them at a fraction of the cost. We're working around the school's schedule. We're trying to make the building safer so that we don't have a catastrophic failure in the plumbing system. And as we've worked in there, it seems like a Pandora's box. We've opened it. Now we're having a hard time closing it. But we do see the light at the end of the tunnel, which we will secure the chemistry labs, science labs, physics labs. We will take the buildings and be able to secure the zones in the building with valves, all done in-house. And that includes the facilities director, who will be there at night with the crews, because we're a small group as well. While the assistant, we'll shift off every other evening. And it's all hands on deck. We use our master carpenter, who will be working with the plumber in general as a crew. So that's kind of how we work at facilities, if we can get things done. So there is an upside to all that. And how the numbers all work out at the end, I think that's adjustable. Obviously, you'll have time for that. But it's the focus on the job and sort of like the mission. And that's how we've been able to get these things done. So I do appreciate the questions that you've asked about putting additional staff on. I'd want to be careful about it too. You certainly don't want to have more people than you can put to work. But we haven't had that problem yet. Thank you.
Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Connors, I see your hand. Councilor Flaherty, does that answer your question, or did you have a follow-up?
It does. I have a follow-up comment. I think I'm about convinced to support this because I think it will introduce efficiencies through the centralization. And some of those are intangible, not exactly intangible, but they're hard to predict because pride of ownership matters, but it's not something you can really put your finger on all the time to know exactly what kind of impact financially it's going to have. But I think one of the things that Chief of Staff Taub commented on was the difference between having one mandate, which the DPW currently has, which is to take care of the town, and the 2 mandates that our school system has, which is to educate our kids and also take care of our schools. And because the school system has been tasked with these 2 competing mandates, they've often had to balance resources which are scarce and make priorities that are hard to priorities. They've had to prioritize educating kids over taking care of the buildings much more often than I would want them to. And they didn't.
Councilor Flaherty, we lost your audio. So I'm going to move to Councilor Connors and then come back to you. Councilor Connors, I'm sorry.
Hi, so I just want to say as well, I am totally for this consolidation. I think it's a great move on the town's part. I do think it will have a savings. I also want to Councilor Ryan hit it right on the head when he said the concerns of the number of new positions that would be brought in for this and maintaining and watching it. So I just want to reiterate that I also have concerns with that. And there will be another, at some other point during this process, there will be another time for us to be able to review that, or at least have some be able to see what it's going to look like and make some additional comments on that. Is that correct? Okay.
I think the last time we reorganized, we did a presentation to the council, and obviously you'll see it reflected in the budget presentations as well when we get to that point.
Okay. And then my second question is, we keep talking about reactive versus proactive. That brings back to thoughts of, I know East Middle there was a preventive maintenance program, and please forgive me because I forget the name.
Computerized maintenance management system.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. That's what it is. So is this system up and running? Because I think it kind of, in our eyes, it kind of got lost after a while. We asked about it a few times and we were told it was being switched and it was going active, and then COVID hit and then poof, we've heard nothing. So I know you guys would set up the preventive maintenance programs for each school, I assume, in this system. And I'm just wondering what the status is of that.
Go ahead, Director Arsenal.
So within the facilities department, and one of the reasons why we do need some additional staff, you really need a dedicated person to be overseeing it. And I don't know what's happening on the school side. All I know is I don't know how you can do preventive maintenance when the building was, there was some serious concerns. So I don't know what the situation is there, but at least on our side, like I said, we really don't have a dedicated person to do it. So having that dedicated person would really help us to be able to manage it. And it really is a necessary component, because you really want to be programming things in before there's an issue. Because if you let something go till it breaks or till there's a concern, you're going to have exponentially more costs associated with it. Because now you're going to have to do cleanup, you're going to have to do mitigation, you're going to have to do a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to have to do. So having that checked on a regular basis. Oh, sorry, Nicole, did you want to say something?
No. I just was going to say, on the school side, Councilor Connors, I believe that they've been putting the information in, but we actually have a school building committee meeting on Wednesday. And so I can get a better sense of where they are on the school side with the software, and I can circle back with you. And if I can get the information before tomorrow night, I'll have that as well.
But I think that there is a clerk on that side too, so that might be able to do multi-functions and be incorporated in it. So it may not be an additional cost, but just having those resources joined will help us. But as far as our end, we haven't had a lot of ability to move forward with it because of, and we actually have been kind of on hold in a way too. Right. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't want to be doing one type of program and then switching to another type. We want to be all in the same situation. So once there's a decision formally made, then we'll move forward. So.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, I understand we still need to be the reactive and do the reactive, but in the meantime as well, we should be planning the preventative of it. And especially with East Middle, they should only be doing preventative maintenance at this point. And South Middle coming up, same thing. It's only preventive maintenance, but you got to do the preventive maintenance or we're going to get in the same mess we're in now. So.
I agree. And Councilor Connors, I think that's an excellent point. And that's why I brought up the example of the filters. Like we can't change our own filters.
Sad.
And so, it's like that. It's like, there's a reason I can't have nice things. I've heard like my friends with small children say that sometimes, like we have to take care of what we have because it's too good and too beautiful. And we don't want to go down that slippery slope where we're putting out fires in a building that is still in what I would consider it's like it's New Year's. Right. And so I agree with you 100% there.
And that's all I have. If you can give me the information on where they sit with that program, that would be great.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Connors. Okay, this is what I think. Councilor Ryan, I see your hand. Counselor Shasha's on the phone and Counselor Flaherty has to finish her thoughts. So I'm going to go to Counselor Flaherty. I'm going to ask if Counselor Shasha has questions, and then Counselor Wren, come back to you. So that's the order, just so, because I know some people can't see everything. So thank you. All right, Counselor Flaherty, is your sound working?
I mean, as far as I know.
Okay, it is.
Sorry. I don't really know out, but my main point is that the reason, in my opinion, to support this, there are two reasons. And one is that it will introduce efficiencies through centralization, and some of those are easy to see because hiring in-house is, or taking care of a job in-house is so much cheaper than hiring it out. But the other reason that I think is really worth touching on right now is that the DPW and also a centralized maintenance program would have one mandate.
Uh-oh. Okay. This is just not going well technologically.
What is that one mandate? It's like a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger. So, all right, Counselor Shasha. Oh, are you there, Counselor Flaherty? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here, but I don't know what to do. I'll try and call in or something because I can't. It's just, I guess it's the wind or something.
Okay. All right.
But wait,
So-
Counselor Flaherty, what is the one mandate?
The single mandate of the DPW is to take care of the town, right? They keep the roads paved and the roofs from leaking and the air and the heating and air conditioning working where we have it, and all of that's their mandate. They take care of things. The schools have two mandates, which is to educate the kids and take care of the buildings. And those two mandates don't work very well together when you're trying to budget for them both, because educating the kids always has to come before repainting or retiling or anything else that can be pushed off for a year. And so as a consequence, things have been cut in the schools on the side of maintenance for so long that our schools are in really rough condition. And that's what's led us to where we are now. I think that moving to a centralized maintenance system is wise, but I think it's gonna be bumpy because I think we're understaffed, and even the efficiencies aren't going to overcome the understaffedness of where we are. But on the other hand, I think that the last thing to be really mindful about is, if we do this, then if we cut the school budget or we even level fund the school budget, then those cuts are going to come right out of the classroom. It's going to come by cutting teachers, by cutting curriculum materials, whatever. It's going to directly affect the students. And the schools have dodged that for a really long time by cutting maintenance instead. And that sent a really dangerous and inaccurate message to the residents of Braintree, which is that the schools don't need this money when they really, really do. So those are my thoughts. I hope that you could hear them.
Thank you, Counselor Flaherty. We got it. Glad you got over the mandate cliffhanger there, as Counselor Ryan said. So, all right. I want to make sure I recognize Counselor Shasha, because I know it's nearly impossible to raise your hand when you were calling in. So, Counselor Shasha, I'm going to give you a minute to either unmute or connect with Clerk Semino if you have a question or would like to add anything.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thanks. I will be in O&R tomorrow, so I will probably have a couple of more questions. But I'm wondering if well, two things. One comment is that although I agree with some of what's been said about hiring new staff and essentially eroding some of the cost savings, that's exactly what I was hoping to see. You know, I think the case has been made that there will be cost savings here. And my concern going the other direction was that we would take those cost savings and try to fund other priorities in the town. If all those cost savings go back into hiring professionals that can do work at $32 an hour instead of $130 an hour, and the end result is far more work being done on the school buildings, I think that that could be a good thing. And the other thing, as far as and this is a question for Solicitor Taub, Can you just talk a little bit more about the process? Because I share some of the concerns about what we are approving at this point, where the school board is with all of this, whether anybody's even spoken to them, and then when it comes back, or does it come back to the council at that point? Or is this something that would be handled from tomorrow night on completely administratively with the union and the school department, and the council would have nothing else to do with it other than the budget next year? Thank you.
Certainly. So first, I appreciate your sentiment on putting the cost savings back in to hire the professionals. That's the way this is successful. If we staff it appropriately with the right and skilled people with the right expertise and skills to do this kind of work. So we have had discussions on the school side with the superintendent and with the chairman of the school committee. It has not gone before the full school committee yet. There were some questions from the superintendent and Ed Cronin that we have been working through. And I think we have, I don't want to speak for him, but I think that we have answered most of them and provided a baseline level of comfort with what it is we're trying to do here, and really emphasizing that the schools will continue to be a priority, or they will be a priority because we know there's significant need there and there's significant impact if on the maintenance side things are not operating as they should. So if and when the school committee provides its support and the council provides its support, we will move into the next phase, which is likely, and I say likely because I'm not going to give away our position, or I'm not going to concede we have obligations that we may or may not have when we get to that point, looking at it from the legal and collective bargaining perspective. But we would engage likely with the unions and start talking about what the impacts to the membership may be as a result of consolidation, because that is what would trigger our obligation to bargain. We are entering what I will call bargaining season, so the timing of that may play out quite well for us. But it may take longer than it takes to negotiate our next collective bargaining agreement. So those negotiations, as this body is aware, are handled by the administration through human resources, myself, and the appropriate department head as a representative. The last reorganization that I had some involvement at the tail end was the Dpw Reorganization. And my recollection of that is that there were multiple presentations to the council as that process was ongoing to keep everybody informed as to what it was going to look like at the end, presuming that all of the bargaining was able to resolve in the manner that the town intended it to. So there will be certainly some kind of reporting out of the process. It's not something that's intended to be done in secret or behind closed doors. And so we certainly can continue to keep the council informed as to the progress, but I don't, on those things, the bargaining, the, establishing what the organization is going to look like, I don't think those roles are within the council's purview, but we can certainly continue to report out and provide updates as we move through the process so that everybody is informed and educated as to what we're doing going forward.
Okay, thank you, Solicitor Taub. So just to clarify on that last point, which is what I was kind of thinking we were heading with this. If we were to vote in favor of this tomorrow with the full council, if the school committee then similarly voted in favor of it, that would be the end of the council's official role, and everything would be handled by the mayor's office after that point. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. Thank you. All right, I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilor Shasha. All right, Councilor Ryan, you're up. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. So I wanted to address something that Council Flaherty asked about, sort of the oversight. I think it's pretty clear that, hearing an echo, it's pretty clear that, and this happens in a lot of organizations, in one part of the organization, we do things better than in another part of the organization. So oversight of maintenance as a whole, we do really well. on the town side. And that's going to go and be with this new organization. So I have no concerns about that. So I think that was kind of one of your questions. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I think that's going to be one of the biggest benefits we get here. And from what the solicitor just said is that will be the end of our oversight. I think, we approve the budget, and if it comes back and all of a sudden it just seems like things are out of whack with this, I'm saying now I want to be involved with it before it gets to the point that we're sitting in a council meeting and I have to vote on the budget. I'd like to be involved and have some feedback and input before that happens. If the manager, title changes and they get a $50,000 raise, I'm going to exaggerate. It's going to be a problem. So I think we have to. It has to be done the right way. That's part of my concern. So, and to go back to computerized maintenance management systems, you have to have corrective maintenance, and I think in the town maybe that doesn't get done, and then all your maintenance becomes preventive maintenance, and you're out there trying to fix stuff when it doesn't work. When if you went out every quarter or biannually and exercised the valve, you wouldn't be where you are now with these valves. So I think we need to have a good maintenance management system. And like the DPW director said, if they want to pick that, I think that's good. You don't want to be stuck with something that's not the right thing for you. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. But to go back to the point that Council Flaherty brought up, I think, we've seen people in the town that if, the electrical system went down, they're not going to go on vacation. They're going to be there and they're going to watch it and make sure it works right. And that's the best indication of future performance is what's been done in the past for me. And so I think that's the best bang for the buck we're going to get here is some oversight. And we can talk about making these major changes and having, this big kicking down a wall and making these improvements. But a lot of the improvements is going to be just small incremental improvement where someone's going out with their PMs and doing their PMs every day and somebody's double checking on them. And that's a major improvement. You don't even, these are existing employees we're talking about. So I hope that's the kind of benefit I know we're going to see and having people, making sure people are doing their job right and training them, giving them the tools they need to do a good job and then double checking the work that they're doing. And that's even with the computerized maintenance management system. We have a saying where I work, and I'm the director of operations and maintenance for the MWRA. And you have computerized maintenance management, garbage in equals garbage out. So if somebody's not making sure the information you're putting in to begin with is good, you're never going to be successful. So that does require some people watching that, some people inputting data, some people creating work orders, some people tracking that. And that's a major improvement we can have in the town. And hopefully that's part of the game plan as well. So I know I just said a lot, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. I don't see any other committee members. Hands raised. I have a few questions and comments, and I thank all of my colleagues on the committee for their thoughtful insights on this, and it's been really helpful to listen to this conversation this evening. So one thing I do want to just say is I think it is, in at least in my experience, an under noticed problem, this sort of line of demarcation between where the school starts and where the town starts for maintenance. I'm going to put a plug in for the path between Evergreen Ave and Liberty School, which is a huge problem when it snows and it's like nobody's responsibility to plow it. And that is a big, big benefit for the kids who live on Evergreen Ave and their parents and the environment if we don't have to drive kids to school. So I hope that with this consolidation, little things that seem like small things that make a huge difference to residents will be remedied, because it will be someone's responsibility. Is that correctly stated? I guess I want to confirm that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. the next thing is I just want to make sure we're mindful and this will have my support tonight because of everything that has already been stated. The hourly wage that you presented, Solicitor Taub, did the delta between the town employees and the labor, the contracted employees. Did the town employees' hourly wage include the cost of benefits?
It did not, because we can't assume that everybody utilizes the town benefits program.
Okay,
That's straight
my
pay.
recommendation would be just to put some kind of a weighted average in there, just to make it as accurate as possible, because I would hate for it to be misconstrued.
Okay.
And that is, as we know from combing through the budget, benefits are one of the biggest costs the town absorbs. And I just want to make sure that that in future is captured somewhere, I think would be helpful.
Sure.
How, I guess this might be for Mr. McGordy or whoever can answer it. How is it that we're working at the high school? How is it we have town employees working at the high school today with, how are we doing this now?
That's a great question. We had, as you know, we had a leak that got into the switchgear room and destroyed the breaker system. So when we went there and did an evaluation, because there wasn't enough staff by the school to handle it, we were called in by the mayor's office to take a look at it. We did an investigation. We realized that the valves in these areas were suspect at best. And so we came up with a plan that we would have to change them all to the fixtures. So that was the first part of the project. The second part was to secure and make safe the science labs that I already spoke about. So that's how we kind of got up there. We took control of what needed to be done in the switchgear room. We added humidifiers, air conditioners, and we cleaned up sort of a mess that was there. So we were prepared to move in with our people. We came in, we addressed it, and we're still there cleaning it up. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. We hope by the end of this calendar year, we'll have completed our objective and done the work that we originally committed to. So that's kind of where we're at. That doesn't mean that the work is over. It just means that the work that we propose to do will be at.
No, and trust me, as a parent of a chemistry student at the high school, I'm grateful. But go ahead, Solicitor Taub.
Well, I just was going to say too, I think kind of to the heart of your question, there was clearly a problem at the high school that needed to be addressed. And the mayor determined that utilizing our staff to address it was going to be the most efficient and effective way to do that. So he issued the directive. And we've worked with the school department to facilitate that. So that's how we got over there now. I think the emergency situation created by the leak is what prompted that decision just for this limited purpose.
Okay, so essentially it was like an emergency action. We didn't have to enter into negotiations with the school department. So I guess just taking that one step further, hypothetically, why is this necessary then?
So in order to make it a permanent centralized department by statute, we have to adopt or approve a consolidation.
Okay, so in a one-off situation like we had with the valves at the high school, we can kind of get around it, if you will. But moving forward,
correct,
legally required to consolidate.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just want to say, I think my last point, and again, thank you for all the work of all the teams here. Nicole, you had mentioned something about utilizing the capital budget to fund some of these positions, and maybe I misunderstood you because I want to make sure that that capital budget is going for capital infrastructure.
No, I just was we look at the operating budget for some of the funding sources for this. I just wanted to note that there has historically been capital appropriations relating to infrastructure and maintenance, which is another pool potentially for funding that will balance out with the additional positions. And that's actually some of how we're funding the work being done there now.
Okay. Bear with me, I'm looking over my questions. Okay. No, thank you so much for all of the information. Oh, I know. Thank you. Did you say there is a date when the school committee is expected to take this up?
It has not been placed on an agenda yet.
Okay. Okay. That is all I have. I don't know if any of the other committee members have additional questions or if we're ready. Counselor Ryan, are you ready to read a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion. Ordinance 2.22060, centralized maintenance department, Department of Public Works, under the direction of the director, shall include a centralized maintenance department combining facility staff for the purpose of maintaining all buildings and land owned by the town, including school buildings and grounds. Centralized maintenance department is hereby established as authorized by section 4-5.3 of the town charter and the adoption of Mass General Laws, chapter 71, section 37M by the town council. This ordinance shall take effect only after a majority vote in favor thereof pursuant to Mass General Laws, chapter 71, section 37M by the school committee. The consolidation of the maintenance department may be revoked pursuant to Mass General Laws, chapter 71, section 37M by majority vote of the school committee or the town council or both. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Counselors Ryan and Connors. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Council Verica,
Yes.
Council Ryan,
Yes.
Council Connors,
Aye.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Sasha,
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion passes.
Thank
Thank you,
you, everybody. And I know this has been a long haul. We've had this on the agenda at least 3 times. So thank you for all of the work. And again, the thoughtful discussion tonight. So I think with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Counselors Ryan and Connors. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Council Verica,
Yes.
Council Ryan,
Aye.
Council Connors,
Aye.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Sasha,
Yes.
all in favor to adjourn.
Good night,
Okay,
everybody.
Aye.
See you tomorrow.
Watch the back.
See you tomorrow.